Hello, welcome to session 12 of Sigma Training. My name is Kim Blake and this session is on contracts. I'll show you one slide with the agenda, then I'll move into the live database. So in this session, we'll view contracts. So a contract is set up in the database and can be used for cost on your meters or for validation on your bills. I'll show you how to edit the contract and the contract history. So a history is where you store any changes. So if the prices have changed, then you can create a new history and that will be used for the time period that you've selected. I'll show you how to view the associated meter and the account. And then we'll look at blended rates. So blended rates can be associated to a particular meter or at a higher level, so at a site, a group, or company level. And those blended rates can be used instead of a contract for when you're doing some of the reporting. I'll show you how to amend and add them, and then I'll show you how to use the contract and the blended rate when running an analysis report. And then we'll have a look at some validation using the contract rate. So I'll move into the live database. I've started at my home page, which is the tree configuration, but I'm going to show you the financial menu and then contracts and then down to contracts. So in here at my top level, we have all of the contracts that are in the database. I'm going to show you this contract here. So if I edit, we can see the details. So we can see the path, the name, the description, and the renewal month. And then there's 3 tabs of data: the history, the meters, and the attachments. I'll come back to the history. If we have a look at the meters, these are the meters that are associated with this particular contract. So we've got 5 meters listed. And then I'll show you the attachments. So if there are any attachments, you would see them in here. Back to the histories. So we've got 3 sets of history here: 2022, 23, and 24. I click on the 24 and click on summary. This will show us a summary of those contract histories. So for this particular period, 2024, starting and ending the 1st of the 1st and 31st of the 12th, 24, we've got fixed charges daily. We've got the day start and end times. We've got the day rate. We've got the night rate. We've got the fixed charge rate. And we've got standard VAT. And the outputs over here are how they're output when we're looking at a bill. If I click list page, it'll take me back to the histories. So that was using the summary to have a look. If I click on the contract and edit, we'll see it in a bit more detail. So this is the bit that we saw with the start and the end dates. We've got the supplier and currency. If I click next, we've got all of those rates listed in here. So the fixed charge was set at daily and at 70 pence a day. Start and end times of a day, the daily rates, and this one is day rate, and this one is the night rate, CCL if it's applicable, and then the VAT. I click next. We can see how that looks when we're putting the bills in. So we've got the values and then the outputs. And then next, if there's any other tables that are linked to this particular contract. So I'll cancel from there. And we come back to the list of histories. So if you've got some new prices and you want to update the database, let's say you've got 2025 prices, you can highlight the most recent one and then copy. That will put a new line in for you, and then you can just edit the parts that you need to. So if it's just the day rate and night rate that's gone up, you can just change those and leave the rest of the figures as they are. So by putting in a new one or copying, that would close off this 2024, and then it would start your 2025. You can add a new one to start from scratch with the history, edit, as I said, copy. You could delete, and we also looked at the summary. So if I close up here, this takes us back to the page, so your contract list. And in here, you can see how many histories there are for that particular contract, the renewal month, the to and from dates, and then how many meters are associated with that. So let's have a look how you see that within a meter and that association. So I'm going to go to the setup menu and down to configure tree and look for my training meter. So it's on my training site. And if I right click and edit the meter or configure, and I'll show you the contract tab. So on the contract tab, we have any accounts that are linked to the site that meter's on, but the one that's ticked is the account that's applicable for this meter. We've then got the cost contract here. So this contract is associated to the meter and therefore to the account. If that contract were to change, if I delete it, and you could then choose the new contract. If the rates change and you've updated the history, then you don't need to make any changes because it's still going to be on that particular contract. So contracts, as I said, are used for cost when you're reporting on a meter and for validation when you're inputting a bill. If you don't want to have contracts in the database, you can have blended rates. So a blended rate will enable you to put a cost to your metering consumption. So if I come back to the financial menu and down to blended rate cost, you can set them in here. So it's defaulted to the path I was at. But let me select the top level. And we can see at the top level for electricity, I've got these rates. So increasing in value over the years. You can have as many different rates as you want to. Now, this is set at the top level. If I look down the menu and come down to the training site, for instance, there isn't anything there for the training site, but it does say the blended rates from Team Demo are currently being applied. So if you haven't got anything applied to the meter, it will look to the site. If there's nothing applied to the site, it will look to the group, and then it will look up to the company level. So you can have different pricing for each meter, or you can have just one across your whole database. Let me select the site, the company again, and I'll show you here. So the last one that we have here is the 1st of the 1st, 23. So if there's been an increase, I can click add, choose my date, stick with the January the 1st, and then put in the new rate and insert. You can export those rates, you can make some changes, and then you can import them back in. And then you can create projected rates. So if you're assuming it's going to increase by 10% over the years, you could set that and you could say, I want an increase of 10% in the January for the next 5 years. I'll just close from there. So let's have a look at those contracts or blended rates being used. So I'm going to show you an analysis report as an example. So if I go to the reporting menu, analysis, and then energy analysis. And when you're creating the report here, you'd be putting your meters in, and then in the output type, you would choose consumption if you want to see the consumption from the meter. Cost would look at the contract, so that would take into account what you have in the contract. So for example, day and night rates, standing charge, VAT. Or you can use the blended rates, and that would be at those rates we've just looked at. So it would say if you've used 1,000 units, it would look at the time period, work out which of the blended rates that sits in, and then do the costing according to that. As I say, if we put a meter in here and we didn't have the blended rate sat at the meter level, it would look up the tree, and at the top, if it gets as far as that, it would take the company level. So that's using it within the energy analysis reporting. Let's have a look at billing. So if I go to the invoice validation and down to manage invoices, and I'll clear the menu to see all of my invoices, and then I'm going to search for one particular invoice to show you. So this is my invoice. If I right click and view validation overview, we can see here what the bill failed on. So we've got the checks here. By default, it doesn't show the skipped or the past ones. If you want to see them, you can just highlight them and it will include them in there. I'll leave them out for the moment. If we have a look at the section here, invoices versus calculated checks, we can see here the invoice charge price versus the contract price it failed on. If I click on the line here, we can see those prices and how it didn't match. So the fixed price cost for the meter number and serial number, the actual charge in the invoice was 95p, didn't match the contract of 0.7. Same for the day units. The charge of 35.65 pence didn't match 31.25 pence. And then the night rate. So let's have a look at the actual invoice. So if I close out of there and right click and edit the invoice and come through the bill, we can see these are the prices that went in for the standing charge, for the day rate and for the night rate, and they didn't match what was on the contract. Let me just cancel from there and OK. So there's two things really I've looked at here, is the contract and the blended rate. So your contract, you can have as many contracts as you need for your different commodities. And then you have as many histories as needed. So if your prices change monthly, you could update it monthly, or yearly, you could update yearly. You've got the option to do that in bulk. You can import and export contracts here. So you could export your contracts, make your amendments, and then import your contracts. Let's come back to the contract list. You've got the opportunity to add new ones, to edit, delete, and to copy. And then when you're editing a contract, you can change the history. So we could add a new history, edit, copy, delete, or see the summary. And then I showed you the blended rates. So if we come back to the financial menu, blended rates, so blended rates for your different commodities. And you can have, again, as many increases as you want in that. and at what level you want, anything from starting at a meter level right up to the top company level. And they're both used in the example I showed you in energy analysis. You choose what it is that you want to run that report on. So consumption, cost from the contract, or blended rates. And I showed you the invoices. So where the invoice then uses the contract to check the cost in the invoice. Just a note on the help pages. I open up the help pages. There is a section on contracts, and it gives you an overview here. And then you've got a contract overview, how to create contracts, manage them, cost analysis, etc. Thank you for listening. I'll speak to you all soon. Thank you.